We're here with Avery Stempel, Collar City Mushrooms here at Indian Ladder Farms. That's the site now that you operate out of. And we spoke to you December 2024. We saw the trailer come in. Since then, what's the experience been like here for you as you made this move?
Oh, Indian Ladder Farms is such a great place to be. I'm so happy we landed here. The team is very supportive. There's much more room to do things here than we had in our location in Troy. We have logs outside growing shiitake and turkey tail and reishi. We have some patches where we've put down some wine caps, and we're planting some wood bluets this year and a couple other outdoor grown mushrooms specifically. And we have some publicly accessible spaces for educational purposes. And then they do a barn school program. And so one of the hats that I've worn in the past was as an educator. And so I did barn school last year, and we're doing 2 classes this year. One on like basic for like kindergarten through 4th grade, and then one a little bit more advanced for the 4th graders through 8th graders.
In terms of the space, you just mentioned some of the attributes there. How does it also impact your growing at the end of the day as well? How has that changed things?
Yeah, when we were in Troy, we were limited to the rooms that we had in our one building.
Yeah.
Here we're growing in shipping containers, and we have a lot more room so that once we fill a shipping container, we can expand into another shipping container. So we do most of our processing in a barn, and we've been operating out of 1 container so far, and we're almost online with our 2nd container. So, and then 2026, we should bring on a 3rd container as well.
Is business up? Has it been the same? I should ask that just to get you on the record as saying like where you're at.
Yeah. Things are going really well.
Yeah.
We had a little bit of a dip, and the economy, people are buying a little bit less products that are more expensive. So we were doing a dinner program, and the last dinner we actually sold no tickets. So we kind of we had to cancel that. And then we're re-looking at how much what we're charging for specific products. So in light of the current economic climate, but otherwise, the restaurants are doing pretty well that are buying from us, and more are waiting to come online as soon as we have the product.
Does that economic world, in terms of what the environment is like, how does that change how you grow as well, and what products you can offer, or how you go about your business? Is there like the overhead, that aspect of things?
Yeah, I mean, thankfully, in the mushroom industry, we don't use fertilizer, so I know that's a big talk with the Farm Bureau and farmers right now is where are we going to get the fertilizer from. Most of the mushrooms that we grow are arboreal loving, so we use pelletized wood chips, and so that price hasn't changed so much. I mean, the cost of shipping supplies has increased, so the cost of like our delivery is a little more, but we've been able to absorb that so far from instead of passing it on to the consumers.
What kind of questions have you gotten here, in this day and age when it comes to what's your product and what you're growing?
Yeah, I mean, so today I put in a bunch of wild forage morels. Like early spring, we just wrapped up a festival that we did called Foraged. And, we've been pulling out so many amazing morels locally. And, people are still very curious about what mushrooms can be edible and what mushrooms are to be avoided. And so, we still are getting the questions of like, oh, can you eat all of these mushrooms? So
Right.
it is kind of interesting.
Because you have the corner here, right? And this is a big front-facing opportunity for you to get people to see and touch what you're doing, right? That's got to have, you mentioned educational opportunities, but just someone that comes into the store, that probably helps, I'd imagine. Just the awareness of what this is all about.
It does. And, we don't have the direct touch points that we used to where our brick and mortar store was in our farm. So we rely on the Indian Ladder Farms team to answer some of those questions or pass them on to us. We are working the Troy Farmers Market, and we're picking up a couple other markets this year. So there are still opportunities for people to get direct FaceTime with us. But just having this space here and people being able to wander through, they don't always expect to see mushrooms at Indian Ladder Farms. They're like looking for apples, and then suddenly like, oh, look at these mushrooms, and how mushrooms can help other produce and specialty crops grow is something that we're working on.
Right,
too.
because I asked that because it's interesting, the difference and obviously you had there was own positives of being in Troy, but also that was very specific, right? You had a specific audience, someone who's going to walk in knowing, for the most part, what you're all about. This is a little bit different than that.
Correct, correct. Yeah, and it is, you get the raised eyebrows, but we've done a couple pop-ups where Amy and I are cooking something, and, we're like, here, we'll try this. And we do still get well, I don't like mushrooms. I'm like, well, you probably had food trauma from the squishiness. People don't like the texture often. And so we're like, well, try this. And then they're like, oh, this is good. And they'll buy some jerky, or they'll take some of the ingredients home for them to make some stuff. So we are still changing those hearts and minds, whether they came in prepared to do that or not is great.
What is, you mentioned some of the positives, some of the challenges on a broader scale before we get to the advocacy day. For growers like you, what is the current environment like out there?
Well, for mushroom farmers, mushroom farming is like dairy farming. It is an everyday thing. It takes constant work, and it's often staffing that we struggle with. So like having the people to be able to do all of the tasks all of the time. And then, a lot of small farmers are only market driven. So then they have to also work the market. So then when you do that market day, you're missing your farm day. So, those are some real challenges. And, we're doing controlled environment agriculture. And so trying to control the environment is often, one of the biggest hurdles. So
Sure. Yeah, and that's a different element that I think people think about. Right,
yeah.
At the end of the day, how's it changed since you delved into this?
It definitely is different than being inside a building. The containers take a little bit more massaging than what we were expecting. But with our second container, we're building a little bit differently. We're putting in some additional infrastructure and insulation and some air exchange things that hopefully will mitigate the problems that we encountered with our first container. And then we'll be able to be a little bit more efficient, and then know even more when we build our third container.
So let's transition now. You probably, if people haven't seen, Donald Trump with an executive order, in one way or another, to put it short term, fast tracking some research into psychedelics broadly.
Yep.
Since then, have you received more questions? Has anything changed that you've seen in the industry since that it's been a little bit more on the forefront of people's minds?
There has been a lot more media splashes since the president issued his executive order authorizing additional research. I think that instead of the raised eyebrows that we were getting 4 or 5 years ago, it's more like, well, how are we doing this? And there's other substances that we can also authorize to help people recover from their various traumas and conditions. I think it's more people are becoming aware of what has been traditional methods to treat people, and considering them alternatives really to what the Western science has approved. But it's a matter of like getting into those the weeds of like, oh, this used to be an underground thing. Let's bring it above board and make sure we can make it safe and accessible.
So you call the alternative methods traditional, right? That's a very important distinction to make in a way that I think you obviously are hoping to change that nomenclature and that perception, I'd imagine.
Yeah, well, we wrestle with that with other medicines. So there are so many other non-psychoactive mushrooms who can be used to treat conditions, but because the FDA can't regulate a food supplement in the same way as a medicine, people are often very skeptical. But thousands of years of experience have shown enormous impact by these different substances. So it's a matter of like, well, it may not be approved above board in the same way, but it's just as effective, if not more effective.
Interesting. So your reaction to seeing that executive order, just broadly there, at the end of the day, you mentioned how people have reacted. How did you react when you saw that?
I mean, I'm pretty excited. I think that this is going to help expand the conversation, and I think that that's really what we need to do is just be upfront about how people are using these substances and how they're being impacted by them. And the more people are comfortable sharing their experiences, the more exposure they're going to get. Because so many people have said, oh, this has changed my life profoundly, but because of my job, I can't talk about it. And I think that more and more people are going like, well, now more people are talking about it, I feel a little bit more comfortable about sharing my experience. So, you know, that's my hope in seeing that it's, you know, at the executive order level, people are going to be like, well, maybe I can talk about it a little bit more.
So you have an advocacy day on Tuesday, so if people either before or after this airs, that's what happens at the Capitol. You see groups come and advocate for their cause. For you, and I think that we should be specific here because the executive order was a little bit broader when it came to a few different types of psychedelics, if you will, but psilocybin for you, this is what we've talked about before. That's the main idea for you, right? That's the main one that you're advocating to move forward here in New York State. Why?
Correct, and psilocybin is one active molecule, one active component of a specific range of mushrooms. So there's 250 different mushrooms that contain psilocybin or psilocin, and psilocybin metabolizes in the body into psilocin. There's a number of other active molecules in each individual mushroom, and you could look at it like an entourage effect. So when you take a whole mushroom, you're actually, not only are you getting that active psilocybin and psilocin, you're also getting a variety of other compounds, as well as like the fiber and the chitin, so the anti-inflammatory aspects of the mushrooms as well. So there's something to be said for synthesized, analog, individualized products, which can, like, oh, here is just this active molecule, and that this is going to produce this one effect. But the whole mushroom is something that we're also advocating for, because I feel like it gives you the broader access to these healing compounds.
Right, because it can do more than what that one molecule can do, right? Which some of the things are built to do, engineered to do at the end of the day.
Right.
So New York, which we've seen, we talked earlier about the hearing from the fall, I guess that was late fall, and then some of the legislation that's proposed over the course. It feels like it's gaining steam here, right?
It absolutely is. And I mean, we haven't met with the governor or her team quite yet, but all of the lawmakers that we've met with have been very positive about creating some kind of access, as long as we maintain appropriate guardrails and equitably safe system. So there was a bill introduced last year by Assemblymember Amy Paulin and Senator Julia Salazar, and they've edited both of those bills into narrowing down the conditions, because the feedback that we got was like, this is too broad. This, we're concerned that this is going to be seen as giving too many people access right away, and people are often afraid of that loosening, ultimate loosening.
Yeah.
And so what this bill does now is gives access to clinician-approved access to people suffering from cluster headaches, first responders and veterans with treatment-resistant trauma, and a few other conditions that kind of narrow the scope. And once we prove that this amount of conditions can be treated safely, and people are not going to collapse society on a grander scale, I feel like it's going to continue to expand in the way that like medical cannabis did, eventually becoming recrecreational.
Interesting. I spoke with Amy Paulin recently about this, and it felt like she said the research is there, we're ready to go. I mean, that to you has to really speak volumes.
It absolutely does. And that is one of the things, is that there is, the body of research shows how these substances can impact so many different conditions, and that we're narrowing it makes sense from a legal standpoint, because we don't want to start too broadly, but once we roll out this bill, I feel like the change is going to be much faster than what it was with cannabis.
With anything, there comes opposition, as you know, from probably being at the Capitol. Those that say, that are concerned about, we talked about psychosis, or those that say the research isn't there, and that maybe a research paper that was done that says a composition of the brain could change. How do you respond to some of those concerns people might have?
Yeah, I mean, there have been adverse effects. People have bad trips or whatever. One of the things that I like about this bill is that it authorizes supervised use, but then transitions into potentially unsupervised use. So once the safety and efficacy of someone's treatment can be approved, then especially in the case of cluster headache, a lot of people with cluster headache take psilocybin at night when they go to bed. So they don't really feel the effects. It's just a matter of making sure the headache cycle is broken. I think that there's enough evidence that shows that those instances of psychosis and adverse effects can be mitigated with supervision and supervised facilitation.
So when you go into the office, we have a list here of some of the potential people that your people and you will be speaking with from across the state. Really, what's the message? What do you talk to them about? What do you tell them when it comes to especially legislation like this?
Yeah, that this bill has the right amount of guardrails and gives access to the right beginning group of people with conditions whose severity warrants these alternative substances. So I feel like this is a great start, and I think that we can overcome any challenges by showing them the research. I mean, we have an intern, Susie May Howard, who has put together 60 or so current studies that are happening, within the last 3 years that detail the impact of these substances on various conditions. And they talk about adverse effects, and there's really very, very few.
How does this, I need to ask this too, because how does this is obviously something you've believed in for a long time, that you've devoted your life in some cases to causes like this, but your business, say this goes through in New York, the research there is the federal level, how does this impact what you do?
Yeah, well, we've been working with the Farm Bureau. The Farm Bureau has actually already unanimously approved language in their policy book that, talks about psilocybin-containing mushrooms as an upcoming agricultural crop. Mm-hmm. I don't see this as the cash cow that cannabis is because use is so different. We'll probably apply for a permit. The bill does not build in dispensaries. Substances will be delivered to facilitators through a discrete delivery service. So we hope to avoid that not in my backyard condition that happened with so many cannabis things. But I see it as a component of our business. We're still going to stay strong with culinary, and that's going to be our true focus.
Okay, sure. And why do you believe in this so much? And obviously, this is something you've been very passionate about. You've advocated for it, and you spoke to some of the issues someone might have that this can help remedy.
My own use of psilocybin-containing mushrooms has made me who I am. I really think that I've overcome, various instances of depression and worked through some trauma that I've had through the substances that I've had. Now, I didn't have facilitated situations. I've gone through some situations that could have been helped if I had the right guardrails. And I want to make sure that those guardrails are in place for people who have been struggling with their conditions and have been reticent to try these substances that can be very helpful, but want a safe, secure location and trained facilitator to help them through the situations.
Interesting. Avery, thank you so much.
Of course. Thanks.